Welcome to the Astropsyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for March 24th through the 30th. And this week is about subtle shifts in your consciousness. And when I say subtle shifts, I think that sometimes the most subtle shifts in the way that we perceive something or what something means to us or the um, meaning that we put behind something, that can be very subtle on an internal level, and it can also have a very broad impact. It can have a very foundationally changing impact in our lives. And so, in some ways, this week, there is a potential for subtle shifts in your consciousness, in the way that you perceive things, in the way that you experience things, your sense of reality. And when I say reality, are we each sort of are walking around with our own subjective awareness of what reality is for us. And this particular week, we are having the planet Neptune change signs. So Neptune is moving into Aries. This is a very big transit because it doesn't happen very often that Neptune changes signs. And Neptune is about our consciousness. So we're going to talk all about that. We're also having a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries this week, and Mercury and Venus are doing some things. So we have a very full week, and there's a lot of themes around possibly shifting the way that you perceive things in your life. And maybe that could be happening just via your own contemplation, or maybe external things, maybe external information creates a change in you. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm very pleased to share the astrology of this week with you from a depth psychological perspective. And side note, depth psychological perspective really is just a fancy way of saying that we're always trying to look at what is possibly unsaid or unseen or unspoken about something, sort of like that which is not something that we're consciously aware of. So we're always sort of holding space for that. Okay, so let's talk about the astrology. So typically with these weekly forecasts, I will work from the beginning of the week into the latter part of the week. So we go sort of in the order of the situation. This week we're doing it a little bit different. We're starting with the more broad, overarching, long-term planetary change first, because we have a big one this week. So we have Neptune changing signs. And Neptune is in a sign about 14 or 15 years at a time. So about every 14 or 15 years, Neptune changes signs. That means that in some ways it is more dramatic when it does change signs, because it's more unique, it's more special, it's something that doesn't happen very often. And so it is this moment of importance where we really want to take notice. And at the same time, long-term transits like this, they tend to have a more intense impact when it's a transit. So this is because, let's say if you have planets in Aries, depending on where those are, Neptune moves so slow that it's going to be there for a longer period of time. So in some ways, it is more dramatic, but it's also more long-term at the same time. If this doesn't make sense, don't worry, just let it soak in whatever way that it lands right now in this moment. Now, I'm like emphasizing this because it's possible that there may be this experience this week of this dramatic change when Neptune moves into from Pisces into Aries. The change is happening this Sunday, March 30th. And it may not be so dramatic for you. It really depends on your birth chart, your experience, what's happening for you now. And if there are people in your life who have who may be having a Neptune transit of some sort. So this is, again, more background. It's more collective. the slower moving planets like Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, even Saturn to a certain extent, but most certainly Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, they tend to be, when they change signs, it tends to be more of a symbol of a collective transition. And also Neptune, one of Neptune's symbols is the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is this idea that that large swaths of people, large groups, societies, that there can be a sort of consciousness about that is shared. There are certain values and rituals and practices and ways of being that we share collectively. And Neptune is a symbol of those things. And so it's very interesting because Neptune is a symbol of collective consciousness, and there is this change of Neptune, collective consciousness, into a different sign. And so I'm very curious to see how this shows up for us as Neptune moves into Aries. It's a very dramatic change from Pisces to Aries. Pisces being so much more about the experience, being in the flow, being moved, being called, these like extraordinary states of experience. Neptune is also connected to the arts, film, music, etc., as well as spirituality, religion, anything that is unseen or extrasensory in some way. Neptune is also a symbol of simply having flow states where we feel in deep connection or in union with someone or something. And this union, this flow state, can sort of go in a variety of different ways. So union can feel very blissful, especially when it's this flow state of being connected to yourself or being connected to nature, or being connected to someone. And this state of unity can also get distorted, where that becomes enmeshment or illusion, not being able to tell the difference between yourself and others, or yourself and someone else, or what you actually think versus what someone else thinks. And this feeling of like the blurring of boundaries. And we see that sometimes in our own psychology, in our family systems, in our culture, etc. And so I think that Neptune moving into a different sign is this possibly this collective change in these areas, in the area of the arts, spirituality, religion, and then also how we unify, how we have states of connection that feel very deep and very sometimes otherworldly, and then also how that can happen in a way where there is a loss of the self. I think Neptune can also show, especially if it's in a birth chart, where there is this feeling of who am I? Like sort of like not really having a strong sense of self or identity. And that's something that could come up here as well with Neptune shifting into Aries. So I'm going to give you some dates to sort of hold in your brain and your consciousness. So Neptune is moving. Okay, wait, let's actually start at the beginning here. Okay, so Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time. Neptune originally moved into Pisces in April of 2011. And it's moving out of Pisces this Sunday, the 30th, into Aries. But it's going to retrograde. So it's going to be in Aries for a little bit. It's in Aries from March this year until October this year, 2025. So a solid chunk of time, and then it will retrograde back into Pisces from October 2025 to January of 2026. And then Neptune will finally move forward in a more permanent fashion to Aries Neptune will be in Aries from January of 2026 to 2039. So those are some dates if you're really interested in following this. I think for right now, the important thing for you to know is that there is this transition, and that especially for those folks who have personal planets or points, such as your ascendant or your midheaven, if you have personal planets or points in the early cardinal signs, so Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, or if you have planets in the late mutable signs, which are Pisces, Virgo, and Gemini, Sagittarius, this is going to be more personal for you, this planetary change. And of course, I feel like I haven't said this actually, I am an advocate for getting astrology readings, for having, I think it can be so rewarding to look at your own chart and to study things and to see what you see and to see how, especially to reflect over time, how your birth chart speaks to you and informs you about your experience, how there's a mirroring of your experience and through transits as well. And also, it can be very, very difficult to see, it can be difficult to read our own chart. And same for, like you can't really do therapy on yourself. I mean, like you can. You can. And also, we are inherently relational and social. And so I am an advocate for getting an astrology reading, having someone look at your chart. I think that that can be really insightful and helpful and even healing in some cases. And so if this is something that's of interest to you, highly recommend reaching out to an astrologer that you know or that you're drawn to see, yeah, what's going on there. Okay, so do I want to say more about Neptune? Yeah, I think like overall this is a very, it might be experienced as a more dramatic shift this particular month, but there's also, Neptune's going to spend some time here. And so that shift maybe, I think like there's kind of this, like inspiration and passion and like activation of go mode when we move from Pisces into Aries with anything. That being said, this planet, Neptune, is a little more like soft and squishy and ethereal. And so it's like the ethereal fish or jellyfish like suddenly, I don't know, like goes into a different tank where it's like there's all these lights and there's all this movement and there's like a lot of waves and water. So it's still water, it's still Neptune, but it takes on a quality that is a bit more quick, and there's some fieriness, there's some passion there, and there's some enthusiasm to begin something new. This is very much Aries. So we're actually going to, for this week, we're going to be talking a lot about Aries and Pisces. There's a lot, there's like a full, there's a full plate in each of these signs. So this is what's happening with Neptune in Aries for the moment. Also this week, we have a partial new moon solar eclipse. I feel like I want to reword that. So it's a new moon partial solar eclipse. The new moon is not partial. The eclipse part is what's partial. And so for those of you that are able to view the video here, I want to share with you why that is, just so that we can like really conceptualize what's happening here. So we have our new moon solar eclipse in Aries happening this Saturday, March 29th. It'll be exact at 3:58 a.m. Pacific time. And it's exact at 9 degrees Aries. And so we see that here because we see the sun and the crescent moon here at 9 degrees of Aries. And like, gosh, look at, we have Mercury, Sun, Moon, Chiron in Aries. We have Saturn, the node, Venus, Neptune, all in Pisces. So a lot of energy at this particular area of the zodiac. And so The north and south node are what denote where an eclipse is going to happen. And so anytime there's either a new moon or a full moon close to either the north node or the south node, we know that there's going to be an eclipse. So in this case, usually it's in the same sign, or it's like close, like 15 degrees, think. So kind of like half a sign ish. But in this case, the node is much farther away from the new moon down here at 9 degrees of Aries. The north node, is at 27 degrees Pisces. So it's close enough that it is creating this, from our perception, there is this darkening of, there's this darkening of the light, and also it's farther away, so there is less intensity around it. The dial is not turned up as high as our previous eclipse, which was the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And so I think that we can also take this, especially since the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo, and the new moon is in Aries. I feel there's kind of like this cooling effect on what is typically a very hot burning new moon in Aries. So new moon in Aries, it's a cardinal sign, it's a fire sign. There's a lot of activation, passion, enthusiasm. There is like an excitement to do something, to express, to be bold, and to act from inspiration. And then also at the same time, we have all of this Pisces energy here, which sort of just kind of like softens things. Pisces is kind of like watercolors. There's sort of like a softness about it. There's a blurringness about it that can sometimes be very, very soothing and like just lovely to just chill in. And, you know, of course, it can also be unpleasant. It can kind of be like annoying to not have clarity, or it can like bring up a sense of confusion, all of those things. And so we have kind of this like mix with this particular new moon. And so I'm going to stop sharing that, the chart for a moment. So new moons, of course, are about new beginnings, initiations, the planting of a seed of something. It is when there is just that like initial spark, that initial something coming together to create new life, to create new potential and possibility. Whenever we have an eclipse, there is a rapidness about that change, that initiation. Eclipses tend to kind of, in my experience, I think of them as sort of like these portals that open, where we can see into another world, another reality. And sometimes this is connecting to the past. Sometimes this is bringing something in from the past, bringing something forward from the past or the future. And sometimes it's letting something go and allowing something um, to exit your life in a way that feels like a sense of completion, or a sense of there's like a pivoting, so to speak. And um, let's see, what else do I want to say? I also think of eclipses as kind of like this reset button. Like there can be a feeling of being able to organically allow something to release, or allow something to come in. There's also this theme, I think, with this being in the sign of Aries, around regeneration, reconnection to yourself, um, in unexpected ways, possibly because of the unexpectedness of eclipses. And there might be this, because the new moon is just the planting of the seed, like the seed has to grow over the next month, the next 6 months, and over the next year. And so it may be this planting of a seed of a new passion, of renewing renewing your, yes, okay, this is what I wanted to say about this. It might also involve like renewing your insight or your ideas or your how you think about things might be renewed in some way. And I'm saying that because Mercury is very close to this new moon. So Mercury is sitting at just 0 degrees of Aries. Mercury is still retrograde. We're going to talk more about Mercury in a moment. But there's something here in this new moon that is also very connected to your thought process, um, how you understand things, the the thoughts that you have, and the scripts or belief systems or like thought patterns that you have that sort of like run through your day. Mercury, of course, is also very connected to our um, communication with other people. It's also connected to divination, which is essentially like communication to anything beyond the mundane material world. And so there is this theme with this new moon also of bringing in new information, allowing new insights to come in, and that there might be something that you're exploring here that leads you down a path of like gaining more and more and more, sort of like following some breadcrumbs. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of tea and then we'll talk about what Mercury and Venus are doing. Yes, yeah. I'm just thinking if there's anything else I want to say about this eclipse. And I do want to say, um, I, I don't know for certain, and I think it really depends on what's happening in your life, like what's happening right now. Um, and I do think it's very interesting that the first eclipse that we had in this set, we had our full moon Virgo eclipse 2 weeks ago. And that one was really close to the South Node. The South Node tends to be about the past, as well as potentially things dissolving or letting go. The South Node is very much about like dissolving, letting go. It can also be about dissolving via the consciousness, like dissolving into like extraordinary states of experiences. Like it can be dissolving your sense of like the material world for a moment when you do feel in that flow state. Anyways, I'm getting off topic a little here. So that eclipse that we had 2 weeks ago, there was such a high intensity of concentration with it being so close to the node, and it also being with a south node, which I think is inherently sometimes a little more challenging for us because it is the south node is very similar to Neptune in some ways, and so I think that it can sometimes take on the qualities that are a little more unpleasant for us because we don't have as many places in our lives to experience some of the more life-giving qualities of the South Node or Neptune, and those would be altered states of consciousness that are safe and contained, and where we have the ability to process the experience, flow states, meditative states, like being in the flow, having a sense of expansiveness where you don't have commitments or restrictions. Like that's very much Neptune South Node territory. And so because a lot of us, don't have access to those kinds of experiences on a more regular basis, sometimes when we have this eclipse like we had with the Virgo eclipse a couple of weeks ago, it can kind of feel a little more sharp or dramatic or concentrated, and where it's like, whoa, like that was really intense. And so I think that this new moon eclipse might be a little more, I don't know if I want to say chill because it's still Aries, but I think there's sort of this less intense tone to it. And I think that there's also this quality around it that's around bringing things in, with it being connected to the North Node. The North Node tends to be more about bringing things in and growth. And of course, there's always a balance. There's always or not always, there's often a sense of polarity around things. Um, and anyways, I think that this particular week, this eclipse, um, there might be more of a feeling energized and possibly looking at things that you want to integrate more into your life versus letting go of things. Though I don't know, it might be a little bit of both. Okay. So also this week, we have the Sun and Mercury making a conjunction. So that means they'll be together at the same place in the zodiac in the sign of Aries. And this is the middle point of Mercury's retrograde. So every time that Mercury is retrograde, it will conjunct the Sun about halfway through. And this is said to be an auspicious time. It's where Mercury is in the heart of the Sun. There's this sense of Mercury being kind of like cleansed in a certain way, or like just like more like the Sun sort of absorbs Mercury, and there's this sense of like this alchemical melding together. And then as Mercury separates from the Sun over the next couple of weeks, Mercury can come forward from this place of gaining some life-giving power from the Sun. Now, what that may look like in more practical terms is this sense of spontaneous clarity, a sense of like the things that maybe have been plaguing you or troubling you clicking into place, and being able to process something more clearly or more cohesively. And of course, the astrology is not going to make that happen for us, but it can correlate, it can mirror to us this time, this moment in time where there is more of an ease and flow around being able to solve something, being able to see something in a way where maybe you see deeper into the heart of thing than you had seen before. Sort of like this spark of clarity. And because this is also when Mercury is still invisible to our eye from here on Earth, there's also this quality of your inner wisdom, your inner voice, your inner knowing, that's heightened, and that you can listen to that when you're able to listen to those more subtle, intuitive inklings, and that may come through your mind, through your body, through the synchronistic events in the world, through your dreams. But there are many ways that this can come through, and often it is more soft and subtle, and it requires a bit of like really holding space for yourself and noticing what your psyche is trying to communicate to you. Okay, so also this week we have both Mercury and Venus moving back into Pisces, and they will both make a conjunction to Neptune. So they'll both be in the same place in the zodiac as Neptune. So Mercury and Venus are both retrograde. They both stationed retrograde in Aries. And they've sort of been traveling together through Aries, and then this week they're going back into Pisces. And so Mercury is the mind, the thought process, communication, It is our analytical processing. Venus is a symbol of our relationships and our relationship to beauty and aesthetics and the arts, and pleasure and joy. And so both of these, there's this more contemplative, reflective quality to them. And so this can look like revisiting something that maybe you've been thinking about. It could be something from the past. It could be revisiting things from the past. I think that happens very often. And also, it may just simply be that you are in a more reflective place at this point in time, especially because it is two of these planets that are retrograde. So, retrograde is essentially an introspective process. So, we can think of the planets in their forward direction as extroverted, as moving forward. But when they retrograde, they appear to go backward. And so this is an internalizing. Internalizing can be reflection, it can be processing things, it can be going back over something. There's a variety of different ways that it can happen. And overall, it tends to be more internal, introspective, and contemplative. And so it may mean, since Venus has been retrograde this past month, it may mean contemplating your relational dynamics, contemplating how you enjoy your life, your relationship to attraction or allurement, all of these things. That there's this movement back into Pisces. It could be remembering past experiences or past patterns. I think there's also this quality of slowing down and really noticing maybe something or an experience that has not been as striking to you before, but that you're like, oh, like I didn't realize that was happening there. Sort of kind of like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you look back at the past and now you know more things about life or the situation, maybe it can change your perspective on things. And so I think this is one of those moments where that might be the case. I think too, with the shift from Aries to Pisces, it's sort of like this being in the micro as well as the macro simultaneously, like being in the detail, which is much more Aries and especially Mercury, and then going into Pisces, which is more expansive. It's more about looking at everything and like being in the ocean of consciousness and the ocean of facts and data, etc. So it's kind of like, I think there's a lot of potential for reflecting in a way that is very like looking at the details of something and then also looking at the bigger picture of things as well. And then, of course, these two planets, Mercury and Venus, are making a conjunction to Neptune, really amplifies this Pisces energy as well, because Neptune is about the experience. And Neptune, whenever there's planets that are particularly close to Neptune, these planets tend to kind of have like a softening and diffused sort of effect. So everything becomes more like undifferentiated in a way. And so with Venus, this can possibly allow for an opening of more connection in relationships, or it can allow for experiencing more compassion, empathy, and unity with yourself, with other people, with humanity. It can be, Venus Neptune is like highly creative as well, so it might be a time where there's a lot of creativity or where there's a lot of dreams that are coming in. And it can also be a time where there's like maybe some confusion around, or maybe like idealization around relationships. And then with Mercury here, there's like this potential for like really a lot of inspiration and imagination, and really being able to have a sense of vision in your life and where you're going and what you want, and being able to connect with people at a deep level. And also the possibility for having like sort of feeling like you're in the ocean and there is not as much stability, and like there's a little possibly a feeling of like feeling unmoored or in the fog. And I think that when we have these transits to Neptune like this, so Neptune is very active this week, just archetypally, symbolically. And so when we have this, we know that Neptune is a symbol of where things are a little more diffuse. It's more difficult to like grab onto something. And so, just like swimming in the ocean, if you're getting pulled out by the current, you want to do your best to not fight it in a way that tires you out, because then you're going to be tired, and then that's dangerous, because that can, you could be harmed. You could, go under the water, and we don't want that. We want you to stay breathing and alive and healthy. So often when we have Neptune active like we do this week, it's helpful to notice, okay, what is happening, what's here, and kind of finding this balance. Yeah, like actually really to like find the flow in a situation as much as you can. So it's not passive surrender in a way that is like giving up and just like, totally going docile. That would be like a freeze response, or maybe like a fawn response. But it's more of this like, okay, like doing like, I'm thinking of that term aikido, where you're sort of like allowing whatever is happening to have some space to flow and move, and you're flowing with it, but in a way that's not detrimental to you, in a way that where you can continue to move in the flow and to direct things or divert things, so that there is energy moving. And so what I think is really important this week is making sure that you're tending to your inner experience and being really good to yourself and being validating for yourself, whatever your experience is, and really validating whatever your feelings are of the moment, and that those are important, and that you get to feel how you feel, and that it's also very important for you to tend to your nervous system this particular week. This is a phrase from a therapist who talks a lot about neurodiversity, and tending to the nervous system is one of her like phrases that she uses a lot. And that really just, it's like another way of saying regulating your nervous system, but from a place of approaching yourself with kindness rather than trying to fix yourself. And so I'll talk more about that in a moment. But yeah, I think there's this kind of like, okay, what's here? What are you feeling? How can you find a flow within what's happening as much as possible? So like not fighting it, not like totally falling over and playing dead, but like engaging with it and finding this flow of energy to connect into. Okay, and so I know this is a lot, and I think that you can totally move through this process and I think there's a lot here for you. The last thing that I'll talk about in the astrology, and then I have some reflection questions for you, and I'll pull a tarot cards. The last piece here is that Mars in Cancer is making a square to Chiron in Aries. So again, more Aries, lots of Aries. So um, Mars is a symbol of our ability to fight for something, to defend, to protect. Mars is really this like advocation of self and others. It can also be a symbol of anger, agitation, like being irked, um, and all of the symptoms that can go along with that when that gets internalized, like inflammation, um, or stress or anxiety, or like feeling mad at oneself. And Chiron is a symbol of our capacity to heal, to bring healing, to bring repair. And Chiron also has this quality around learning and teaching and mentorship and becoming more of your authentic self, becoming more of who you are. Because in the myth, that was what Chiron the centaur did. He mentored other people to become more of whatever their role was, whatever they were trying to refine in themselves, whether they were trying to be a warrior or a healer or an astrologer or a mathematician, whatever it was, he helped them hone their skills. And so at this point, we have Mars coming into contact with this place. And so um, there's this quality of your anger, your enthusiasm, your passion, your desire to fight for something or to stand up or to protect. There is some healing function in there. There is something in there that is healing, that I would endeavor to say that your anger or frustration or agitation is helping you in some way, that it's telling you something about what needs your attention, about where to focus your energy or where to not focus your energy, or where there is maybe, I don't know, like you'll have to tell me how this lands for you, but maybe where finding more balance or boundaries or protecting your energy in some way, where maybe that is healing for you. And of course, as always, I'm saying this to you as well as myself. I think that this, when we talk about healing and boundaries and caring for ourselves, this is a lifelong, ongoing process that becomes more and more refined and more internalized as well, like working with the internalized voices and internalized dialogues about what it means to protect our own energy and how we show up, and how we talk to ourselves when we do or don't show up in particular ways. Okay, so yeah, so I think that there's also this thing around your anger or agitation getting you closer to your healing process. And also, like, we can think of Chiron as your own inner wisdom, your own inner mentor that is always there for you. Okay. So, first reflection question for you: where is there an opening or a curiosity that's calling to you? Where is there an opening or a curiosity that's calling to you? And when I was thinking about this, I was really thinking about the myth of the hero's journey, um, put forward by Joseph Campbell. Um, I think there's I think there's many versions of the hero's journey that that we could and should explore. Joseph Campbell's version is not the only one. It's very, I think it can be reductive in some ways. And also, I think it's valuable to look at the hero's journey um, as it's typically portrayed as this cycle, this circle that one goes through over time. And I was thinking about this because the very beginning of the hero's journey is the call. The call, um, the call can come from external means, it can call from internal means, but it's really a feeling called or moved or drawn or curious. I think that is how it sort of happens in our modern culture. And so um, there's something that's being initiated here for you via this new moon eclipse in Aries. And so what is it? It might be big, it might be small, it might be small and lead to something big, or vice versa. I don't know. But like, where is there like an opening or a curiosity for you? And then number two, how would you like to tend to your nervous system this week? And so when I say tending to the nervous system, this just is a really fancy way of saying how can you um, do things that help you feel relaxed, that help you feel chill, that help you feel good in your own body. How can you do things that help you feel safe, that feel like, okay, I'm okay, it's okay, everything is okay. Um, and we can't feel like that I mean, I don't think we can feel like that all the time, but we can do things that invoke that kind of experience. And this can be things like movement, like physical activity, especially something where you have to concentrate so much on the activity that your thinking mind, your Mercury mind, can't be active. And so for a lot of us, that might be sports or doing something doing something. There's a dog that just barked outside, and so I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's doing something like with animals. Anyways, my point is like the physicalness can be this like regulating impact for your nervous system. It might be, in contrast, having like a brief period of time this week or maybe a couple times a week where you do like a sensory deprivation, where you go find a quiet place, have an eye mask or darken the room, and have like headphones on or whatever, like reduce the stimulation as much as possible. I don't know, maybe it's pulling a tarot card, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's drinking your coffee and listening to one of your favorite songs, whatever it is. How are you tending to your nervous system in a loving, kind way based on what feels good to you right now? And then the last reflection question, uh, what patterns are you noticing in your life right now? And I think sometimes these become more apparent when we're talking to someone, which is why I think it's great to go for an astrology reading or see a counselor or a therapist or a coach, or talk to a friend, whatever. It's easier um, for us to, when we have a little distance from our lives, we can see things more clearly. So just like, what patterns are you noticing right now? And you can notice what patterns are happening in your life over the last couple of months. You can also notice patterns in your dreams as well. And I want to talk about dreams for just a second here. I feel like I saw at some point someone left a comment on a video where I had talked about dreams, and they were asking, like, how do you work with dreams? I think there's a ton of videos probably online talking about this. And I will say that especially now, dreams may come forward more frequently because of the transits that we're having. And we can think of dreams as like a movie. So pretend that your dream is a movie that you're watching, but the movie that you're watching is about you. And all of the different characters are like different parts of you. And we could even say all of the things in the dream. Let's say you have a dream where you're at a house and there's like a lamp there that's really cool, and there's an aquarium with a fish, and there's a dog. All of those things also are you in some way. So, like everything in your psyche is put into image form and it's put into a dream. And so we can think of the dream as like this movie, this storyline. And dreams are so personal, and so I think it's very difficult to look at like a dream dictionary to understand your dream, because you're going to have associations that are personal to you, um, where things may mean something for you and something very different for someone else, especially given what's happening in your life now. That's the context. And so I think just like at the very beginning, looking at the different people or symbols in the dream as a symbol of you, and then like what do you notice is happening there, what's kind of like the storyline or the pattern, and that storyline, like the plot so to speak, how does this how does it speak to what's happening for you, like happening within you right now. And I think it can be really helpful again to like talk to someone about it, because sometimes it's often it's very difficult to decode our own dreams. Okay, so that's the third reflection question. What patterns are you noticing in your life now? Okay, so let's pull some tarot cards. If you're able to, if it feels comfortable, I invite you to get into a comfortable place where you feel like you can chill and relax if you're not already. And as you're here, imagine that your energy is taking up lots of space in this room, so that you're filling the room, and then there is this beautiful protective bubble around you. And maybe you can see that, maybe you can't, maybe you can visualize it when you close your eyes, or maybe you just know that it's there. It's this beautiful protective bubble of light. And the bubble of light can be any color that feels good for you right now. And this light is protective, energizing. It's cleansing and illuminating. It allows you space to move and to feel. This is a beautiful time to call in the presence of your spiritual guidance team, ancestors, angels, whoever or whatever you have a relationship with that is a benevolent guiding force for you. Ask that they're here with you now to protect you, to help you, and to communicate with you in a way that you can easily understand right now. And then bring your focus into your heart. You can, even if it feels challenging to connect there, you can even bring your fingertips up to touch heart space at the center of the chest. And from that place, maybe there is an inquiry, a wondering, a question that comes forward. you may pick a number between 1 and 3 if you like. So have one card be special for you. Okie dokie. So, first card is the Fool. And this deck is called the Tarot of Spells and Potions. So in this deck, the Fool card has an image of this person in sort of like a jester kind of costume, where there's like the mismatch of each leg has different kind of stockings, and they have like multicolored hair and a hat, and they're okay. So like typically in the Fool, the person is carrying like their runaway bag with them. They're like off on a journey and they're packing light because they don't know where they're going to go. And this person has what looks like kind of a weird bag in that way. And then their little dog, which is usually in the Fool card, their little dog is on the hat. It's like sitting on the brim of their witch's hat. And in this card, they look like they're crossing the crosswalk in a big city. Okay, so, and I pulled this card upright. I'm trying to get in the habit of saying when I pull them upright, but, you know. Okay, so the Fool is the first card in the tarot, in the whole deck. So it is the card of beginnings. It's also the card that symbolizes where someone is like sort of leaping into something. There is an innocence about the Fool card. There is this like innocence and delight and like just like being bright-eyed into a whole new adventure. It's like you're like you're fresh at the beginning, ready to go on this new exploration. And the Fool, of course, then also shows like there's also symbolism around like not knowing and like leaping into something without having all of the info. Like it's literally impossible to know exactly how the journey is going to go. Or I don't know if literally, but do you know what I mean? Like it's very, when you're going into uncharted territory, there's this like there's this there can be this excitement, but also like there's a lot of not knowing, and so it helps to be prepared. It helps to know that you don't know, and the Fool is very much connected to this like beginner's mind mentality. And so especially if this was your card, I don't know, maybe you're at this place where you're starting something new. Whatever your situation is or whatever your question is, the Fool is really encouraging a beginner's mind. The Fool is encouraging you to embrace the unknown, embrace the new. As I'm saying this, of course, this is like, it's always so important to follow your gut and what feels good to you, and to make sure that you're you're putting yourself in situations of protection and safety as much as possible. And the Fool card is saying that there's something energizing about not knowing. There's something that you can gain from having like a different kind of perspective, or trying something new, or moving forward with something. Okay, so we may go back to that, but that's I think what I have to say right now of the moment. And also with the Fool, there's also like the companion of the little dog. There's like you're taking your instincts with you on this journey. Okay, and the second card I pulled is the Ace of Swords. I did pull this reversed. And so in this deck, there's this person, they're sitting cross-legged reading a book, and they have their palm sort of like they're like facing the sky, and then from their palm there's like this sword that's pointing up towards the sky, and they're sitting on this bed of clouds. So the Ace of Swords is, of course, about new beginnings. Also, it's very interesting. We have kind of like two new beginning-y kind of cards with there being a new moon eclipse. Um, so aces are typically about that seed being planted. There's something new that's coming into being, and it is the seedling. So we don't see the sprout just yet, but there's something new that's, I think of aces as sort of like an offering that we can choose to accept and run with, but we don't have to. It's simply that. It's an offering, it's an option. And when we have the swords are tend to be a symbol of the mind, the thought process, communication, decision making, and even like inspiration to some extent. And so with this card being reversed, I don't know, like what's happening there. Maybe it feels like the path forward is not clear, or it's like not what you want, or there's like maybe a little bit of conflicted feelings, or maybe there's like some confusion. Um, Things maybe feel a little topsy turvy. And then in this image, the person is looking up into the side. So that kind of makes me think like they're maybe like thinking about the past. And there's, okay, yeah, so maybe this card is possibly like over analyzing things, or being like um, caught in that like analysis paralysis, like knowing too much about all of the options and all of the possibilities, and then it makes it very difficult to find that one path forward. Not that there always has to be one path forward, but I'm just saying the one, because the Ace of Swords, like there's one sword with the Ace of Swords. There is, so it might be that there's sort of like a lot of moving pieces that are happening for you right now. And also, it may be that you're embarking on something new via the Fool, and then the Ace of Swords is kind of like the next steps after you say yes, after you take the first step. It's like, okay, the first step, because the Fool is the 0 card. So we have the 0 and then the ace, which is essentially a 1. And so it's like the 0 is like, I feel like, okay, this is what I want to say. I feel like the Fool is like you deciding. Like you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what's happening. And then the Ace of Swords is like the first tangible action to make it real. And so that the tangible action either is unclear right now, or you're not sure, or like you don't know if you actually want to do it. So there's like maybe possibly like, yeah, I want to do the new thing, but I don't know if I want, like the logistics are maybe a little unclear. I don't know. You tell me how that sounds for you. Um, and then and then we have the Five of Pentacles. And I really like the imagery in this particular deck. So in the imagery, there is a person with blue hair and these really cute like space buns, this like double bun situation in their hair. And then they kind of look like they're playing with a parrot. The parrot's on its back, and the person is kind of like scratching the parrot's belly, almost like you would a dog or something like that. And they're playing tic-tac-toe. And someone has just won tic-tac-toe, but we don't know who it is. And then and they kind of look like they're in this tropical place. And then there is this stained glass window in the background that's very reminiscent of the traditional Smith Waite imagery. And so traditionally, um, this card, I like, there's a lot I want to say about this card because I think traditionally it's a symbol of like feeling um, shut out or like a lack in some way, or like feeling like you don't have resources, like very tangible survival kind of resources. Like there's something that you need that you don't have access to. That's kind of like the feeling tone of it. And behind that, though, like we really draw into the stained glass here that um, behind that feeling of lack, there is something that you can connect into, but it requires you to ask for help, to seek it out, to like um, continue on the path of looking for what it is that you need. And there's also this quality of inner resilience and finding what it is that you need on an inner level, and also maintaining a sense of hope as well, and like not entirely giving up. And so I think this card has a lot to offer us, where I think also too, like this cards can sometimes denote like this feeling of like a dark night of the soul, where it just feels like you're just like at max capacity for dealing with whatever the thing is. And so I want to emphasize when I'm reading this, I'm not saying like that's going to happen to you or that you're going to have that experience, but I'm saying it's kind of like this reminding us of how intense moments can bring up so much for us. Intense moments can bring up our resourcefulness. Intense moments can invoke our inner survival skills. I'm thinking of that book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, like the dire circumstances can really draw things out of us that we didn't know that we had on the inside. And that there's this intensity to life over periods of time that we all experience from one time or another. Like life is intense from time to time. And that it's important to seek what you need and to ask for help and to maintain a sense of um, hope and or also that search for meaning, that search for something that has meaning and value to you. And this may be connecting into the Venus retrograde as well. And so as I'm looking at this, it's kind of like if I'm reading all of these together, it's kind of like you're going on this journey. You're going on your initiation or your hero's journey, or you're thinking about like the Fool is also kind of like the beginning of Inanna's descent into the underworld to visit her sister. The Babylonian myth of Inanna, where she goes down into the underworld, meets her sister, and then ascends back up to the upper world. It's like you're going on a journey, and that may be more big picture in your life. It might be more small picture. I don't know. Maybe it's like only a week long journey. And the logistics are a little unclear right now, but I think also the Ace of Swords points to something that is like sparked something, especially like around your mind or your thought process or your awareness. Like I'm thinking about how the sword can like pierce through something or cut something away, um, like cutting away cobwebs. So there's like the middle part after the beginning is a little bit unclear. Maybe we're not really sure what's going to happen. And then there is this like inner strengthening that happens as a result of this process. There's this inner strengthening, and there's also this like being able to connect with the deeper parts of yourself or your resilience, or maybe the ways where you do need a little support and you didn't realize it. Or maybe you do need a little, like thinking about how on this card it's the person playing with the parrot. I don't know, maybe you do need a little more playtime than you realized. Maybe that's what's happening. Okay, so that's the astrology, etc., for this week that I have to share with you. I am wishing you a most easeful, safe, and enjoyable week as much as possible. And I will see you next week. Okay, take good care. Bye.